If you are commonly asked to build out a workshop for your office, your ministry, a group, a family and friends group, and you could use a little help, I would call it a little bit of juice. I got some gems for you. We'll be back right after the intro. You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time. Hey family, I am Linnita Hosten, and I help or teach community leaders how to communicate to those that they love and lead with excellence. And if you're watching today, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you're watching from YouTube, if you're watching on LinkedIn, you can go ahead and click like. Let me know that you're here. If you're watching in the comments, I am looking to see you. I'd love to shout you out, and I appreciate you for joining me every week if you are joining today. We are streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Before we jump in today, I got to tell y'all about what happened on Friday. So Friday was the inaugural Stage Power Intensive, which is my beginner's public speaking class. And we had an amazing time. I feel like the attendees who came all felt that they got a very interactive, very engaging, very practical, skill-driven or skill-focused workshop. They were very pleased. So was I. And I was excited to see that so many people are just as passionate about overcoming the fear and as I am about teaching it. And so it was a pleasure to serve them. The diversity in age, gender, and ethnicity and experience in the room was amazing to see. We did have some a man in the room. We had, well, a few men, 2 men. But I look forward to doing it again. In fact, we will do it again in the fall, and we will have a wait list available if you're interested in joining us for our second rendition of Stage Power Intensive. Stay tuned because it is coming. We're going to do it again, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited about empowering other people to build this skill that has really been transformative for me. Okay, so if you're watching and you happen to be a part of a group or an organization that's requesting you to do a workshop, or you want to do more workshops, I want you to type in, even if you catch the replay, type in what kind of workshop are you working to build out, or are you working on? I would love to know. But I want to start first with the definition of a workshop, because sometimes there is a little discrepancy between a speaking engagement, which is likely a monologue, which is a dialogue between one person having it with other people, but a workshop is a dialogue between the person who's leading it and the people in the group. So a workshop is defined as a hands-on interactive session where participants actively engage in learning and skill building. It's a skill building learning experience. And what I mean by that is there has to be a very concrete learning objective when you have a workshop. And Stage Power Intensive, the word intensive is a fancy word for workshop, but intensive is just a workshop that is going to build on a skill set, a lot of areas of the skill set. So it would be intensive because you're learning a lot in a short period of time. And I love workshops because they give you a chance to transfer the knowledge that you have onto people who are in the room who desire to have that knowledge. And if you are an expert in any capacity, this is a great way for you to monetize your expertise by hosting a workshop. So a few ways, I just want to give you 4 tonight before I hop out of your hair, that you can, that will help you build out an interactive workshop. And that first one is definitely creating an outline of your time. And so I think you can have a 30-minute workshop, 45-minute. You can also have a 60-minute and a 90-minute. You could also have a half day. Stage Power Intensive is close to a full day, somewhat of a half. It's considered a full. Anything over 4 hours is considered a full day. But you're responsible for mapping out that entire time. And to be honest, it's a lot of time to fill. And it shouldn't be just filled with lecture, which is you verbally sharing your expertise. It has to give people of every learning style an opportunity to engage the way that they like to learn. So hands-on activities where they get to participate in doing the function, or they get to lead in front of others. They get to touch something. So, mapping out your time, it should include lecture, it should include interaction, whether that be a game that fosters learning around a specific topic, or them actually doing the topic, or you teaching and then participants doing, or them listening to a video, listening to an audio, writing about it. But I want you to map out the time. So I always say you should map out your content in blocks, blocks of 10 or sometimes 5, just depending on the age group that you're working with. But in 10 or 5 minute increments, what you're doing should be changing. So if you start off lecture, maybe you go into group discussions. If you start off group discussion, maybe you go into activity. If you have activity, then you go into lecture. Then you switch the next 10-minute block. It should be interchanging. And that helps you keep people engaged when you are shifting the learning experience. Most workshops that I've gone to, if a person is not intentional about engaging everyone, it's pretty lecture based, and then they may ask you, do you have questions? You can answer those questions, but that's the extent of it. When you're putting together something intentional and you want it to be interactive and engaging, you have to move your people. And so one way you do that is definitely mapping out your outlining your the time, and then seeing how you're going to give each increment of time to keep your attendees engaged and learning at the same time. And here's the other thing I want us to do. This is a little low, so let me bring it up a little bit. I think that when you are doing a workshop, you should literally be referring back to the learning objectives that you set. So, for instance, when I wrote out the vision for Stage Power Intensive, there were 4 pillars of learning content I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover addressing nervousness. They call it glossophobia, which is the fear or anxiety behind public speaking. I wanted to address articulation and pronunciation. I wanted to address having stage confidence, like what you're doing when you're on stage with props or podiums. And I also wanted to address body language. So those are 4 learning objectives. So then me as the facilitator, I have to come in and provide an activity for each of those learning objectives. So I have a lecture for them, but then I also have an activity where you can apply what I lectured, you can apply it in practice live. Like, people want to practice the skill while they're with you so that they have a chance to exercise it and to refine it based on your criteria. So review your learning objectives. What is it that you want your attendees to have to do? And then that gives you direction on what kinds of activities you should be infusing. YouTube is always a great way or a great place to go to grab activities. You can search the kind of activity, but I caution you to always give credit if you use someone else's creativity. And I just wanted to throw that in there. So, but you can also think creatively too. And don't be afraid to take activities from different age groups or different kinds of ethnicities or cultures and bring them back to your group. So just because you found the activity and it was done with 5th graders doesn't mean it can't be done with adults. It's just a matter of making it appropriate for your group. And so that judgment can only be best determined by you. So really quickly, before we go into the last 2, I want to remind you, if you're looking for ways for us to work together, here are the 3. You can bring me in to speak. You know I love to do that. I got a lot to talk about. You can hire me to train if you have a group that you want to get better at doing workshops or facilitating presentations, maybe sales groups. I would love to do that too. And then lastly, you can bring me in to write a curriculum, which is just a host of learning objectives that are packaged for a specific period of time. And that's more of a long-term partnership. And so those are the 3 ways we can work together. And if you want more information about that, you can go over to linnitahosten.com/connect. Happy to serve you. Hi, Miss Denise. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. We're talking about how to build out an interactive workshop. If you've ever been called upon to package your expertise and transfer that knowledge to a group of people, here's a way you can do that. So the 3rd one would be to create community. You know, I don't know if you've ever been to a place where it was supposed to be a workshop and no one's talking. I always attribute that to what was done on the front end to get people to feel communal. So as a leader, if you're leading, facilitating, not just a workshop, but if it's a keynote, any time where you are in an environment where people don't know each other, you have to create the community. And so there's several ways you can do that. You can have a welcoming thing. You could have the way that the room range. In fact, at Stage Power Intensive, if you notice, no one's back is turned to each other. You can't see this woman to the left, but oh yes, you can. You can see her a little bit. There, everybody can see each other's eyes, the way that the room was engaged. So seating is one way you can create community. You can also create community by having games related to community, by having questions that foster community, vulnerable questions. You can create community by saying it, like establishing that in the beginning. I always said I wanted Stage Power Intensive to be a very safe place to learn and grow, because it requires a level of vulnerability to share an area that you don't feel as good in. That's like showing up to the beach in the bathing suit that you don't feel as good in, but you came to the beach and it happens to be a party there. So you're in front of other people. I attribute the practice of public speaking the same way. It's the same level of vulnerability. You don't feel like you're clothed, fully competent in the skill that you're trying to learn. And so having a feeling of safety and community was important. And I think when you have community, then you have greater engagement when you tend to do games like this.
Do an X.
So,
if you're an O, you sit and do an O. Make sense? Any questions? On your marks, get set, 7. Change. So, Sophie, you sat down.
So to give you some context, this is human tic-tac-toe, and I think it's a great way to create community. What he did was, and I'll let you finish watching in a second, he assigned each person on each side of the room a similar number. So you could be there was ones on this side, twos, they were lined up, and then when he called out your number on each side, you would run and form a human tic-tac-toe. So there's a lot of critical thinking here too. This is also movement. You can get people out of your seat. It's a great activity to do after lunch to get people's bloods flowing and their mind rethinking. So I'll let you continue the video so you can see.
First, you get the spot. On your mark, get set, 4.
Sit down.
Ooh, the O is up first though. The O is up first. 2.
Jump.
Oh, all right. On your mark. Get set. 3. Yeah.
I love it. So essentially, you are using your hand gestures to form the X or the O. It's a great way to get people moving. And if you have a communal-like environment, it's a great way to use them to get engaged. You can also do this as an icebreaker too. If you lead a staff meeting and you have everyone in the office has the mobility to run or even walk fast, they don't have to run. So definitely creating community is definitely one. And here's the final one. You gotta leave room for connection. If you're doing a workshop with adult learners, adults come to learning environments with a host of background knowledge, experiences, exposure. They are a toolbox of information. And when we don't involve them in the learning experience, we neglect to kind of acknowledge that about them. So we leave room for connection by having a time period where there's just simply Q&A or welcoming questions during the workshop. So some people say, hold your questions till the end. Unless you really encourage people to write them down, I don't think we should do that. I think we should encourage people to talk. And we just do a better job at controlling how long we stay in a Q&A period. But I think welcoming those to ask questions in the middle of learning is powerful. And we want to make room for that kind of connection. When you answer someone's question when you're in a workshop, it makes them feel seen. When you celebrate someone because they spoke up or added something to the conversation, you're validating their expertise. And that's the kind of behavior that creates community. So you want to be able to leave room for connection by having Q&A, by asking, do you have any questions? And when you have a strong connection, and people in the room start to remember each other's names, and then you can do things like this. This is called a name blanket game. So basically, 2 people come up to the blanket on each side, and when the blanket drops, the first person to call out the person's name is the one who wins. You can only do these kinds of things when you foster community. People kind of know each other. It's a great game to do at the end of the day to tie in connectivity. Make sure you stay connected to the person who came to the workshop. And so when you're thinking about building out an interactive workshop, you got to think about all these pieces. You got to think about the learning experience. Are you doing the learning objectives that you set forth? You got to think about the community that's created. Are you acknowledging the expertise and the experiences in the room? Are you giving people a time to be human, to kind of share their values, principles, and experiences? And then finally, are you keeping them engaged by intertwining not only lecture-based materials, but activity-based materials, hands-on things, videos, audios that they can listen to? You want to engage the totality of the learner while you have them. If you can get those elements in place, you have a very interactive workshop. And when you have something that's good, you can begin to sell it. So when you have a great outline, what I would suggest you do, if you feel like you have something packaged really well, I would do it for free a few times. And then I get some testimonials from attendees, and then I begin to sell it. Because at that point, you can begin to monetize your expertise. If you want to learn more information about that, shoot me a DM, because that's definitely something that I like to help thought leaders do, is package their expertise so that they can begin to sell it and use their voice in any room. Any questions tonight before we hop off? Any questions? And any questions for tonight? Let me know if you have any questions. I will address them in the chat. If you happen to catch the replay, you can type in your question. I will certainly reply back to it when I see it. All right, family, I don't see anything. I enjoy doing these podcasts with you. And if you know someone who could benefit from the information that was shared, share it with them. Hit the share button. Also, you can subscribe and be notified of every time we go live and what we're talking about that particular week. I love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. See you next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye.
You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time.